On today's show, I'm revisiting 5 bold predictions I made before the season, and I'm realizing, whew, I might have been a bit too bold.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into these 5 bold predictions I made before the season, this episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. Now, on today's show and over the next couple weeks, I'm going to be revisiting some of my preseason predictions. And thankfully, they're not all as rough as this one's about to be. But before the season, I made 5 bold predictions of what the Rangers would do in 2024. And this is going to be a lot of crow eating on my part. Let's look at the number 1 bold prediction that I had before this season. My number 1 prediction was Wyatt Langford starts the All-Star game, wins American League Rookie of the Year, and earns MVP votes. Well, that's looking like it might just be an 0 for 3. There's only one that even has a real possibility. I mean, technically, MVP votes haven't come out yet, so it's still theoretically possible that Wyatt Langford earns some down ballot MVP votes, but that would be insane. And he had a good rookie season, but I think it was just a little bit too bold on this. Before the All-Star break, he was fine to mediocre to mostly bad, if I'm being completely honest. It was not a great pre-All-Star break rookie season for Wyatt Langford. It ended up finishing out as a very good rookie season, ending with a 3.9 baseball reference for the highest among American League rookies. He was working better at Batsy. Was if the season had, I think, one more week, he might have ended with a 25-25 season, the 25 home runs, 25 steals. Alas, he did not get to the 20 plateau in either the home run or steal mark. 16 homers, 19 stolen bases, a 740 OPS, about 10% league average, better than league average with the bat. Finished the season on an absolute tear, winning the American League Rookie and Player of the Month with a 996 OPS in the month of September. Literally doubled his home run total in the month of September. 8 home runs in that month and 8 in the entirety of his season before that. I mean, looked much better after he came back from a hamstring injury at the end of May, early June. He won American League Rookie of the Month in June. I think that it's going to be difficult for him to win American League Rookie of the Year. I think Colton Cowser just built out such a huge, heavy lead early on. You know, he played more games. He only missed 9 games this season, as opposed to Langford, who missed 28 games in the entirety of the season. Austin Wells also had a great rookie season, a 3.4 Fangraphs WAR year, the second highest among American League rookies. Lawrence Butler, who started the year in the first half, was just not great. Actually, just before the month of July was not great. But from July 1st, basically on, he was one of the best hitters in baseball. Defensively, he was making a lot better plays. Only played in 125 games this year, but I mean, Lawrence Butler was absolutely fantastic in the second half of this season, and he might end up finishing ahead of Wyatt Langford. Langford might not even make it to be a finalist this year. I think that would be it'd be a tough look for him. I think he had a better year personally than Austin Wells, but a rookie catcher playing for the Yankees and being an above average bat, being a very good defender, still hitting 13 home runs as a rookie catcher on a team that ended up winning, having the best record in the American League. That'll get you some AL Rookie of the Year votes. I mean, Willie Abreu had a really good year for Boston. Parker Meadows started the season really, really badly and finished it after he spent some time in the minor leagues, came back up and looked absolutely fantastic. Langford and Carter were two of the three pretty much guaranteed around the board favorites for American League Rookie of the Year to start the season, along with Jackson Holiday. Holiday had a terrible, terrible rookie season. Evan Carter did not build on what he did last year, but Wyatt Langford, alas, I was too bold in predicting that he would be this good this fast. Next year, all bets are off. I'm going to be probably just as aggressive with my picks for what Wyatt Langford is going to do next year. I think All-Star is absolutely on the table. I think that this end of the year breakout is kind of a turning point for him. It took him a while to get started to find his footing in this league. This was the longest season of his baseballing life. And even then, he still had a few missed games. That 3 weeks that he spent on the IL with a hamstring strain, came back and was just as amazing. It was significantly more amazing than he was before. Had a long learning period. I mean, Major League Baseball is hard. It takes a lot of adjusting. And the Rangers, I mean, my predictions were very, very bold for what I expected him to do. But I mean, given what we just saw in spring training, where we were, I think I made these the week of opening day. So we hadn't seen what he had done just yet in Major League Baseball. Didn't think it would take him a month and a half ish to hit his first home run. Didn't think it would take him till June 18th to hit his first home run over the fence. Did not think that was going to be a distinction from his first Major League home run, but alas, that's where we were. But those were the expectations that Wyatt put on himself, that this organization put on him. And obviously, the Rangers missing out of the playoffs this year is not just because Wyatt Langford wasn't, the second best hitter on the Rangers this year. There were a lot of other factors, a lot of other offensive, downturns and disappointments. And it's really hard to call a guy who just got drafted a year ago, spent all of 200 plate appearances in the minor leagues before this season in his rehab stint. He has, I think, 211 now with the rehab stint. But a guy who, takes 7 months, 9 months, whatever, from when he was drafted to get to the big leagues, and then struggles a little bit in the first half and really turns it on in the second half, showed some flashes of brilliance, some amazing moments all year long. I mean, the overall numbers, I don't think, tell the full story of how good a rookie season that Wyatt Langford had, of having 3 walk-off hits, having multiple grand slams, including a walk-off grand slam, being so aggressive on the bases. And I think the most underrated part is him going from what felt like absolute liability in the outfield, the way he was talked about, the way he was handled, the way projections had him of, oh my gosh, this guy there's no way you could put him in a major league outfield, to at the end of the season, he's not only a plus defender, but a really, really good defender in left field, maybe even an average to above average one in center field. I mean, according to outs above average, he was in the 80th percentile of Major League Baseball in terms of his defensive acumen for the entirety of Major League Baseball. His arm value was just outside the top 10% in the league. Arm strength in the 68th percentile, but his throws were accurate. I mean, he had some of the most outfield assists among left fielders in baseball. He had 7 outfield assists as a rookie, as a guy who was considered an absolute liability out there defensively. And he's still getting better. He's still going to be 23 next year, 23 years old next year. And he will have this full season of disappointment, of frustration. And I'm sure he's going to hit this offseason as hard as he has ever hit any offseason heading into next season. I think that's going to be the case for a lot of these Rangers hitters. But the frustration of this season, I mean, he was talking about it even the end of August, right before he kind of turned this on. It wasn't just the month of September that he turned this on. It was, the last week or so of, August, where he was like, this season has not gone like I've wanted. This is not good. I have not been good. And he's still a rookie, putting all these pressures on himself. And the Rangers are going to keep putting pressures on him. They're going to need him to step up and be even better next year. From a 4-war season as a rookie, they're going to need him to be better, which is an insane thing to ask. And maybe even more insane is that I think he's absolutely going to do it and get all of those accolades that I thought he'd get. Well, not Rookie of the Year next year. That's out of the question. Maybe Kamar Rocker could be the first Ranger to win that award in quite some time. But in terms of starting the All-Star game next year, absolutely on the table. In terms of earning MVP votes next year, I think that's absolutely on the table. When you're the best player in the American League, these other players having sensational seasons. I mean, Bobby Witt Jr. having one of the best seasons we've ever seen from a shortstop. Aaron Judge having one of the best seasons we've ever seen from any right-handed hitter ever. Juan Soto having an incredible season that most years would be an MVP level season. All three of those guys who are going to finish top three in MVP voting, all of them were in playoff chases in the month of September. And we're playing very good baseball. But Wyatt Langford was better than all of them in that month of September, which, even though this was not quite my biggest swing and a miss of these 5 bold predictions, it makes me feel a little bit better about it being just a year ahead of schedule. Coming up, we're going to go through my other bold predictions, including one about Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom that looks downright silly in hindsight, right after this for our sponsors. This episode of Locked On Rangers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. It's time to explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city during the postseason. Maybe it's time to taste test your baseball stadium competitions, stadium cuisine, but luckily on you, Booking.com can find you the stay that is just right from you. From Booking.com's wide variety of choices across the U.S., you can go incognito in all your baseball rival cities. Booking.com can help you find the stay that's close to your home team or your rival team's stadium, but no matter who you're rooting for this postseason, Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts to cute bed and breakfast stays, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com. Booking.yeah. Now, the number 2 bold prediction, I did make these very bold in hindsight, perhaps a smidge too bold, because my number 2 bold prediction heading into this season was that Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom would combine for 30 regular season starts. Both would get fully healthy come playoff time. Well, that was not the case. The actuality was they combined for 12 starts as opposed to 30. 54 whole innings. And in terms of they're both fully healthy come playoff time, well, Scherzer ended the season on the IL, but Jacob deGrom was healthy come playoff time. It didn't matter. We didn't get to see him in his first postseason start as a member of the Texas Rangers, unfortunately. So not 100% whiff rate on this one, but still a very, very bold choice coming off of a season where Max Scherzer had major surgery for the first time ever in an offseason. This is not a guy who has missed basically any time throughout his whole big league career. He has been just the paragon of health. And I know what many of you are saying, Bryce, how are you such an idiot thinking that Max Scherzer would be just fully healthy this year? He would, make 100 innings. He would throw 100 innings or make, 20 starts or so. Well, I'll be honest. I looked pretty good at that. It looked pretty good when Max Scherzer was initially supposed to come back in the month of May and ended up getting pushed back and back and back. Ends up coming up in June, which was the initial timeline. Jacob deGrom's initial timeline was sometime in August. I kind of assumed late August might end up being the case. But this was more about me banking on the health of Max Scherzer. This is the least healthy season he's ever had in his life. He's pitched 17 years in the big leagues. He's made 30 starts basically every season until 2022 when he signed with the Mets. They made 23 starts that year, 145 innings. Then last year, combined with the Mets and the Rangers, he made 27 starts, 152 and 2/3 innings. Even with that IL stint that we thought might end his season, didn't end his season, came back in the ALCS, wasn't great, came back in the World Series, pitched 3 shutout innings in the Rangers' first ever championship. Because I feel like people forget that. Max Scherzer, those 3 innings in Game 3 were massive and make the trade alone worth it. Those 3 innings by themselves. Not to mention what he did to get the Rangers to the postseason last year. And so I thought, okay, here's a guy who's always been healthy, who is one of the greatest pitchers this game of baseball has ever seen, who's been nothing but the peak of durability his entire life. Yeah, back surgery is a little scary, but if someone's going to do it, if someone's going to come back, and I wasn't even predicting him to have, a Cy Young season or make an all-star team or pitch a perfect game in the playoffs. So I was just saying he would come back and post and be healthy because that's what he's done. I thought we'd get a few more than 3 starts out of Jake DeGrom, but since the Rangers were so far out of it, I think he could have come up, 2 2 of those rehab starts that were in the minor leagues could have been in the big leagues. So I could have been a little closer on this, but I don't feel bad in projecting Max Scherzer to come back next year. And, I'm not projecting him for 25 starts or 150 innings or anything like that next year, but I think he's going to sign somewhere. I would be very surprised if he just hangs it up. If that was the end of Max Scherzer, that one start that we got after he got off the IL in Seattle, if that's the last we see of Max Scherzer in Major League Baseball on the mound, I will be surprised because this guy is such an extreme competitor. He is one of the greatest we've ever seen. And I guarantee you this guy wants to end it on his own terms. He still wants to pitch. He worked so hard to even get back for that one start at the big league level. I mean, heck, making a rehab start in September in AAA wearing those alternate Round Rock Express uniforms. I mean, the picture of him at 39, actually, I think he just turned 40. The picture of him like making that start was just absolutely a testament to how dedicated this guy is to his craft, to staying healthy, and to posting every 5th day, being a member of a big league rotation. That didn't happen this year. That's not the only reason why the Rangers missed out. It's definitely more about what the offense didn't do than Max Scherzer missing starts, because he was fine in his 9 starts here, but nothing too spectacular. Still could have helped a little bit of fewer starts from, Dane Dunning, maybe fewer starts from John Gray, neither of whom had very good seasons. I think more starts from Scherzer as opposed to those guys would have made this team better. But really, it would have ended up pushing Jose Urena to more bullpen outings. Maybe would have pushed Cody Bradford out of the rotation, and both those guys were solid. So I don't think that, Scherzer missing most of this season is why this team is where it is. Now, if they had DeGrom for the whole season as opposed to the 3 starts they got, I think that would have made a bigger difference. But alas, I don't even think a fully healthy, fully Jacob DeGrom season could have saved what ended up happening to this team this year. Number 3 bold prediction, a little off. I said that Jose Leclerc would become a top 5 closer in Major League Baseball. Well, that didn't happen this year. Leclerc was average. He was an average reliever this year. He was a 0 WAR season, saved 1 whole game, and pretty quickly was moved out of that closer role the first, 2 weeks of the season. Now, if you could just pretend that I said the Texas Rangers will have a top 5 closer in Major League Baseball this year, I would have been spot on. But alas, I picked the wrong guy. If I had said David Robertson would have been amazing this year, which I thought he'd be pretty good. I didn't think he'd be this good. If I had just said, the Rangers will have a top 5 closer in baseball, did specify that it'd be Leclerc, would have been spot on because Kirby Yates, absolutely a top 5 reliever in Major League Baseball this season, the 2nd best ERA among any reliever in baseball this season, a 1.17 ERA, which was a whole 0.4 runs better than the 3rd place pitcher, Hunter Gaddis, but alas, nearly double the best ERA in Major League Baseball from relievers. Emmanuel Clase, a 0.61 ERA as a reliever. Absolutely phenomenal season from Clase, the former Rangers prospect who just last night gave up that 3-run home or something that, Corey Kluber didn't do in his time with the Rangers uniform. He didn't give up any home runs, or let alone back-breaking postseason home runs. So did the Rangers really win that trade? No, they didn't. But it's fun to imagine. Yates was phenomenal this season, and Leclerc had, one of his better strikeout seasons. He hasn't had more than 11 strikeouts per 9 in a season since, I believe, 2019. 2018 was his best year. This year, he was coming off of an incredible postseason, and that was a lot of what fueled my thoughts on him, being better this year. He had a 4.32 ERA in 66 and 2/3 innings. 89 strikeouts and a few more walks than normal. I mean, around 4.5-ish walks per nine, which is kind of where he's been the last few years. He had a few more base hits. He got BABIP'd a little bit this year, a little bit of bad luck. But, when you put on that many base runners, when you give away that many hit by pitches and walks, even with the great strikeout numbers and the, pretty solid to keep the ball in the ballpark with only 0.9 home runs per nine. Still, eventually that stuff is going to find you. And Leclerc is a free agent this offseason. He's not going to be the top priority of Rangers relievers to bring back, in my opinion. But he might be the most cost effective. I think he'll be a fine reliever if the Rangers bring him back. He obviously fits in the clubhouse. He is a Rangers postseason legend forever. I mean, with what he did in those ALCS games, I mean, you throw out that one game. He had one bad game in the postseason. One bad game nearly cost the Rangers the season in the championship, but it didn't. He came back out there, got back out there on the hill. That delivery in Game 6 in that moment was as good as we've ever seen him. That strikeout of John Singleton, just one game after giving up the biggest home run of his life, the most soul-crushing moment in my Rangers fandom, that Game 6, heading back out there and getting out of that big spot, Rangers pulling away in Game 6, and then finishing it out, closing out that ALCS victory in Game 7. Just an all-time great moment. I think the Rangers should bring him back. I think they should want to. My thought on him becoming a top 5 closer in baseball, relievers are so finicky. I mean, making any predictions about any relievers feels like it was dumb in hindsight. But let's just, for the rest of these predictions and how wrong they were, let's just pretend that I said the Rangers will have a top 5 closer in baseball and that it was Kirby Yates instead of Jose Leclerc. Just give me a little bit of reprieve. Coming up, we're going to look at the most wrong I've been in any of these predictions, these final 2 bold predictions. Coming up right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. That's America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Right now, they've got World Series odds right now. Shocking if you're hearing this, that the New York Yankees are the favorites at plus 340, then the Dodgers at plus 430, Phillies plus 450, Padres plus 480. Padres making some moves up. Every single ALDS and NLDS series is tied up at 1 game apiece. Some fun playoff baseball. And I feel like those Padres at plus 480, only the 4th favorites to make it. I'm feeling pretty darn good about what their odds are. So go check it out. Download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and go to FanDuel.com. The show is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best way to get tickets for any live event that you're looking to go to, whether it's sports, whether it's music, whether it's comedy, theater, so much more. Game Time is the best place to go and get your tickets. Game Time Picks is a new feature that filters out all the fluff and only shows you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They've also got a panoramic seat view, so you can see exactly what your seats are going to look like from the app before you buy. They've also got the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% the difference. They've also got your purchase covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Now, you may be listening to these bold predictions and be thinking, wow, surely he can't get any more wrong than he's already been. And you would be just as wrong as me, because the #4 bold prediction I had before this season, oh boy, this might be the wrongest one. Actually, I don't know. Both these two are pretty bad. But the #4 prediction I had was that Josh Jung and Jonah Heim would combine to hit 60 plus home runs and both win Silver Sluggers. Well, that sure didn't happen. That was the least happening of all of these so far. The actuality was that they combined for 20 home runs, 7 by Josh Jung, and 13 by Jonah Heim. Yep, that is pretty far off. I was thinking that this was going to be a big breakout year for Josh Jung. And, well, at the pace he was on for the first 4 games of the season, 2 home runs in his first 4 games. That would be, if he had played all 162, if my math is correct, that would have been 81 home runs by himself. So, well, that's not what happened. Josh Jung, of course, missed most of this season due to freaking Phil Maton and his stupid fastball hitting Josh Jung in the wrist, breaking his wrist, not completely ending his season, but taking out the largest of chunks from it. Ended up missing 80 games before he came back. I believe it was actually around 78 games that he missed before he would eventually come back, play 40 games, and then would not actually 42. Yes, 42 games before he would go back on the IL. Only 46 games from him this year. What was supposed to be a big breakout year for Josh Jung ended up being, unfortunately, a big broken wrist year. And Jonah Heim, knowing the burden he had, it was just too much pressure on him. The worst offensive season he has had since being the Rangers' primary starting catcher. That happened back in 2022. He had a 697 OPS season that year, 16 home runs. I mean, this was his worst offensive season since 2021. His first year with Texas, where he and Jose Trevino were splitting time behind the dish. Only 10 home runs, a 598 OPS that year. This year, the OPS was 4 points higher. It was offense was better that year. So his OPS plus was worse compared to what was league average this year. His OPS plus at 72, one of the worst qualified hitters in baseball. This was an unmitigated disaster of an offensive season from Jonah Heim. And for a guy who usually starts off the season very quickly, this year, I thought he was starting off the season slow. And turns out that month of April and March was as good as it got. As good as it got. I mean, a 676 OPS in that first month. And I thought, okay, well, I guess this is just him having a slow start to the season because they didn't play him that much in spring training, because he was coming off of such a long regular season, plus catching, I believe, every single game of the playoffs through that World Series run. His offense was just completely dried up by the time the Rangers got to, heck, even the ALCS. I mean, outside of those 2 home runs he hit, which were big home runs in that ALCS, offensively, not a whole lot of contributions from him down the stretch. And this year, that 676 OPS for the months combined of March and April, that was the high water mark. They didn't even have a single month where he had an OPS north of 700. This was really tough year for Jonah Heim. Granted, his backups being absolutely abysmal offensively didn't allow him nearly as much time off as I thought he would. Last year in the first half, he had an 812 OPS and a 656 OPS in the second half. This year, a 644 OPS in the first half and a 527 OPS in the second half. This was a really rough year for Jonah Heim offensively. And he was one of those big bats the Rangers were counting on, having another good season. I don't know if last year was just an aberration, if it was just, I don't know what happened this year that led to his offense being so incredibly far down from what the Rangers had last year. But he needs to have a huge bounce back season, or the Rangers are going to have some difficult decisions to make about maybe even DFAing him. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's definitely something that the Rangers have to at least consider, because this was absolutely disastrous for the injury to Josh Jung and for just the offensive season that was from Jonah Heim. Now, my last bold prediction, this one, I really didn't feel like it was all that bold, but it sure was. And it is absolutely I think the biggest swing and a miss of these bold predictions. Number 5 prediction is that Adolis Garcia finishes top 5 in MVP voting, establishes himself as one of Major League Baseball's best players. Well, that didn't happen. That very much did not happen. In fact, almost the opposite of that happening. The first month of this season, I thought, oh boy, this is happening. This bold prediction absolutely coming true. Maybe I was too quick on the other ones, but this one I was like, oh yeah, no, this is definitely happening. 8 home runs in that month of April and March combined, a 932 OPS, and then down the drain. Just an incredibly miserable month of May, of June, and July. I mean, in May, he had a 544 OPS for that month. He had a 504 OPS for the month of July. 504 for a whole month. He got that OPS north of 700 for the final 2 months of the season as well, 723 and 740. But still, it was painful. This was a painful offensive season from Adolis Garcia, and not only the offensive fall off, but the defensive fall off from a Gold Glove season to a just very, very bad defensive season. He's probably going to be the Rangers' everyday starting right fielder next year, but he wasn't an All-Star this year. He just was not good. This was his worst overall season as an everyday starter. Worse than his rookie year in 2021, where he was an all-star, worse than 2022, where I thought he maybe should have been an all-star, but was at least, a 2 to 4 win player every year from 2021, 2022, 2023. He was on fire in the postseason. He was the Rangers' postseason MVP. Seager won the World Series MVP. Adolis won the ALCS MVP, but for the entirety combined of that postseason, Adolis was incredibly consistent. He was dynamite. He was electric. He was the beating heart of this team. And I thought that that was going to be the next step forward for Adolis. There's been, after every season, it felt like the collective opinion on Adolis Garcia was, that was nice. That was nice to pull that out of nowhere. I don't think he's going to do it again. Oh, he did it 2 years in a row? Okay. That was just a little bit of a fluke. The Rangers are lucky they got this kind of production from a guy who they themselves DFA'd at the beginning of the 2021 season for Mike freaking Foltynewicz. But he's surely not going to keep doing this. And then last year has a career year, 39 home runs, 107 RBIs. The ALCS MVP and a Gold Glove looked absolutely fantastic. And for whatever reason this year, it just did not happen. He did not take that next step. He took a very, very big step backward. And it's not just his fault that the Rangers missed postseason this year, but he certainly didn't help. He was supposed to be probably the Rangers' second best hitter this year. Maybe you make a case for Wyatt Langford or for Nathaniel Lowe or for Marcus Semien. But based on production last year, he was their second best hitter. And him falling off to this degree was startling and staggering. And I think me predicting him having this offensive season coming off of last year might have been even bolder than me predicting that he would be a top 5 MVP and establish himself as one of the game's elite players. Alas, that did not happen. None of these bold predictions happened. And maybe next year I'll be a little less bold in these predictions. But that's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.